Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when the soul cries out for freedom, a deep, unshakable need to shed the burdens that have weighed down the heart for far too long. Emotional liberation is not about rebellion or cold indifference. It's a sacred act of reclaiming your power from the people, circumstances, and thoughts that never deserved to hold it in the first place. When you finally reach the point where you say, "I don't give a shit anymore," what you're really declaring is that your peace matters more than your past. Your healing is more important than their approval, and your journey is not up for negotiation. Emotional liberation begins when you stop carrying the expectations of others like chains around your neck. It's the realization that not everyone is meant to understand your heart, and they don't have to. You were not created to live your life pleasing the crowd. You were created to walk with purpose, guided by divine design. That doesn't mean you're hard or heartless. It means you've grown. You've learned that peace is found not in perfection, but in alignment with your soul, your truth, and your creator. Imagine a woman who has spent years in a toxic relationship begging for love, constantly shrinking to fit someone else's broken standards. One day, after yet another tear-stained night, she wakes up, looks in the mirror, and doesn't recognize the person staring back. Something shifts. She decides that enough is enough. She doesn't scream, she doesn't fight, she just walks away. And that quiet exit, that divine decision, is her liberation. She isn't giving up, she's giving it to God. That is emotional liberation. That is power. Or picture a man buried in shame, trying to live up to the world's impossible standards, never feeling good enough, no matter how hard he works or how much he achieves. The pressure has eaten away at his joy. But one day, in the stillness of prayer, he hears a whisper in his spirit, "You are already enough." And in that moment, something inside him breaks, and something new begins. He lets go of the lie that his worth is tied to his performance. He steps into his life with new clarity, and the weight finally falls off. He didn't just stop caring, he chose freedom over fear. This is what emotional liberation looks like. It's not reckless abandonment, it's sacred surrender. You stop fighting battles that God never asked you to fight. You stop begging for a seat at tables where your presence was only ever tolerated, not celebrated. You walk away from what drains you so you can walk toward what heals you. Faith plays a crucial role in this transformation, because to truly let go, you must trust that there is something greater holding your future together. You must believe that God has a plan even in the letting go. And once you do, the fear that held you hostage begins to dissolve. You no longer need validation to feel valuable. You no longer need to fix what was never your burden to carry. You finally understand letting go is not losing, it's choosing yourself, your purpose, and your peace. So here's the call to action. Stop apologizing for protecting your soul. Stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive. Walk away from anything that doesn't align with who God is calling you to be. Speak the word. Stand in your truth. Trust the healing. And if anyone calls it selfish, remember, they only say that because they can't control you anymore. You are not here to survive under the weight of expectations. You are here to rise, to live, and to thrive in divine freedom. Emotional liberation isn't about not caring. It's about finally caring enough about yourself to let go. Let it all fall away. What's meant for you will rise from the ashes, and you'll soar. Letting go of negativity is one of the most powerful acts of spiritual courage a person can make. It's not about pretending life doesn't hurt or that disappointment doesn't sting. It's about standing face to face with all the pain, betrayal, judgment, and chaos, and deciding, this will not define me. When you finally reach the point where you say, "I don't give a shit anymore," you're not declaring war on the world. You're laying down the weapons that were never yours to carry. You're choosing peace over pettiness, healing over resentment, growth over grudges. Negativity is a parasite of the soul. It attaches itself to thoughts, memories, and emotions, feeding off your energy and convincing you that you're stuck. But here's the truth: you are never as trapped as your fears make you feel. The only prison most of us live in is the one built by our own beliefs, about who we are, what we deserve, and how others see us. Letting go of negativity is breaking down that prison, brick by brick, with every brave decision to stop giving power to what was never meant to have it. Think of the friend who always drains you, the one who gossips, complains, and pulls you into their storm. You've tried to help, to listen, to be patient. But all it's done is steal your joy. One day you realize you don't owe your loyalty to someone who poisons your peace. You stop responding. You stop explaining. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. That's spiritual maturity. That's letting go of negativity. Or picture someone who's held on to an old wound for years. Maybe a betrayal from a loved one or words spoken in anger that cut too deep. The memory replays constantly. The pain remains fresh and it keeps you chained to the past. But then, in a moment of clarity, maybe during prayer, maybe through a quiet walk, maybe in a breakdown that becomes a breakthrough, you realize that forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you, and you let it go. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. That is when you begin to live free. Letting go of negativity also means changing your relationship with yourself. How many of us speak words of doubt and fear into our own lives? I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. This is just who I am. These lies feel safe because they're familiar, but they are chains. When you stop believing them, when you refuse to let your past mistakes or failures be your identity, you begin to walk in the light of who God created you to be. Faith is what sustains this process. Without it, we try to let go but still hold on just in case. But true release requires trust. Trust that you're not walking away from your peace but toward it. Trust that when you release the toxic, the divine will fill the space. Trust that your healing is worth more than your pride. Faith says, even if I don't understand it now, I believe something better is ahead. So here's your call to action. Whatever is stealing your peace, release it. Whatever is making you question your worth, walk away from it. Whatever is blocking your joy, let it go. Not tomorrow, now. Speak life over your future. Choose healing over hurting. And every time the old pain tries to call you back, remind yourself you don't live there anymore. Letting go of negativity is not weakness. It's strength. It's saying, I may have walked through the fire, but I will not carry its ashes. Let your soul breathe again, reclaim your light, and move forward with a heart made whole by the power of divine healing. Spiritual freedom is not about rebellion, it's about release. It's about waking up one day and realizing that the opinions of others no longer dictate your worth, your identity, or your direction. When you reach the point where you say, I don't give a shit anymore, it's not a cry of apathy, it's a song of liberation. It means you've finally stepped into the sacred space where your soul is no longer shackled by fear, guilt, shame, or approval seeking. This is spiritual freedom, the divine right to be exactly who God created you to be, without apology. Most people walk through life carrying invisible chains. Chains of comparison, people-pleasing, perfectionism, past mistakes, and unhealed wounds. These chains keep them bound to expectations that were never theirs to carry. But spiritual freedom begins the moment you choose to put those chains down. It's when you say, I will no longer perform to be accepted. I will no longer silence my truth to be liked. I will no longer live small because someone else is uncomfortable with my growth. That's when healing begins. True spiritual freedom comes when you remember that your value is not defined by how others see you. It is defined by how God made you. You were made in divine image, filled with purpose and wired for light. When you internalize that truth, the external noise starts to fade. The criticisms, the doubts, the judgment, they lose their grip. You no longer bend yourself out of shape to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You stop explaining your soul to people committed to misunderstanding it. Real freedom isn't about becoming careless. It's about becoming careful with your spirit. It's not about disconnecting from responsibility. It's about reconnecting with your calling. When you stop giving your energy to things that drain you, you start making space for things that bless you. You stop watering dead relationships. You stop justifying your worth. You stop trying to heal people who refuse to be healed. And in doing so, you create room for your peace to rise. Imagine someone stuck in a cycle of needing approval from others, family, friends, co-workers. Every decision filtered through the fear of judgment. Every move made to gain validation. Then one day, through prayer, through suffering, or through a breakthrough moment of divine clarity, they stop, they let go, and suddenly their life begins to align. Their energy shifts. They're not angry, they're free. That's the power of spiritual freedom. It turns anxiety into assurance, chaos into clarity, and striving into stillness. But freedom isn't always comfortable. It's lonely at first. The world doesn't know what to do with someone who can't be controlled by fear. When you no longer give a shit about fitting in, you might stand alone, but you'll stand tall, because you're no longer swayed by the crowd. You're led by the Spirit, and the Spirit doesn't lead you backward. It leads you into boldness, into truth, into love. Here's the truth: God did not create you to live bound. The cage you're in may be familiar, but it is not your home. If you feel the tug to let go, to release the people, thoughts, and habits that keep you small, then do it, not with anger but with grace, not in spite but in love. Walk out of that cage with your head high and your spirit whole. You are not meant to carry every burden. You are not meant to fight every battle. Some things are meant to be surrendered, not solved. And when you finally surrender, when you release the need to control, to be accepted, to be perfect, you'll find yourself in the arms of a freedom so profound, so holy, it can only come from above. This is your invitation: let go. Step out. Breathe deep. The moment you stop giving your power away is the moment you claim it back. That is spiritual freedom, and it's waiting for you now. Faith over fear is a radical shift in consciousness. It is the inner declaration that you are no longer governed by the opinions of others, the weight of your past, or the pressure to please. It's choosing belief in divine guidance over the constant worry of, what if? When you reach the place where you say, I don't give a shit anymore, it doesn't mean you've lost compassion. It means you've found clarity. It means you've finally decided that your faith is more important than your fear. For most people, fear is a silent dictator. It tells you to stay quiet when you're meant to speak. It urges you to shrink when your soul wants to rise. It persuades you to settle when you're called to more. But faith disrupts that narrative. Faith says, even though I don't see the whole picture, I trust the one who does. It allows you to step forward into the unknown without needing validation or guarantees. And that kind of courage is what unlocks breakthroughs. Living with faith over fear is like stepping into a battlefield with your eyes wide open and your heart wide awake. You know the risks, you feel the tremble, but you also feel the fire. Something divine begins to take root inside of you, a whisper that says, you are more than your past, stronger than your weakness, and destined for more than survival. That whisper, that's the Spirit moving. That's heaven confirming that your boldness is not a mistake. When you no longer care about pleasing everyone, something powerful happens. You start pleasing God. You stop editing your voice. You stop apologizing for your light. You stop playing small just to be palatable. Because faith teaches you that your worth is not up for debate. It's already been settled. And when that truth hits your heart, a fear has no place left to hide. Consider the story of someone who once lived for others' approval, saying yes to everything, constantly anxious, never feeling good enough. Then something breaks. They lose something or someone, or maybe they simply get tired of pretending. And in that brokenness, they look up and say, God, I can't keep doing this. I need to lead now. That moment is when faith begins. Not the faith that keeps you in comfort, but the kind that pushes you into purpose, the kind that says, I'd rather disappoint others than dishonor myself. You don't need to know the whole way, just the next step. Faith doesn't demand perfection, it requires trust. And every time you choose trust over fear, your spirit gets stronger, your path gets clearer, your vision gets higher. Yes, people may not understand you. Yes, they may talk, judge, walk away. But let them. You're not walking with them. You're walking with God. You were never meant to stay stuck in fear. The calling on your life is too sacred to wait on anxiety and approval addiction. You were designed to walk in power. You were created to speak with authority. You were made to rise. So when fear comes knocking, when doubt, shame, guilt, or insecurity tries to keep you small, stand in faith and say, not today, not anymore. This is your call to action. Let go of fear. Speak your truth. Walk in purpose. Trust that even when you feel afraid, God is already in the future preparing your victory. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to say yes to the voice that tells you you were made for more. So live bold, love freely, dream wildly, and when fear tries to hold you back, let your faith rise up louder. Because you've come too far to turn around now. And the world needs the fearless version of you. There comes a moment in life when your spirit can no longer tolerate the weight of pretense, fear, and constant striving for approval. That moment isn't weakness. It's the beginning of awakening. Inner strength awakening is not about becoming harder, colder, or more indifferent. It's about becoming grounded, whole, and unshakable. It is when you finally say, I don't give a shit anymore, not out of bitterness, but from a place of deep spiritual clarity. It's the powerful point where you stop sacrificing your peace for the comfort of others and start honoring your soul. Inner strength isn't found in noise or domination. It's born in silence, in moments of personal confrontation, in the nights when you wrestle with your purpose, your worth, your pain. It's when the masks fall off and all that's left is your raw, real, divinely created self. And in that stillness, you hear it, the quiet but relentless voice of truth saying, you were made for more than this. You were never meant to shrink. In a world that constantly tells you to be more, do more, prove more, there's freedom in finally letting go of the facade. When you decide to stop giving your energy to what drains you, your strength is no longer wasted. You stop pouring yourself into relationships that disrespect your worth. You stop striving in systems that demand your silence. You stop chasing love, approval, validation from people who don't even love themselves. That's when something shifts. That's when your spirit wakes up. Inner strength awakening is a divine experience. It is the moment you realize that God never created you to live in fear. It's remembering that you were formed with intention, purpose, and holy fire. You begin to walk differently, not arrogantly, but confidently. You speak differently, not to impress, but to express. You love differently, not to earn affection, but because love now flows from a healed place. People may misinterpret you. That's okay. They may say you've changed. Good. They may call you cold, distant, detached. Let them. What they're really seeing is your light. And sometimes that light blinds those still living in darkness. Think of the story of Esther. She wasn't just born to be beautiful or influential. She was born for such a time as this. Her timing mattered. Her placement mattered. Just as yours does. Your birth month feel insignificant until you ask God what He was doing in that moment. Then it becomes a clue to your identity, and a compass for your journey, and a symbol of His care. Many people walk through life feeling out of sync, disconnected, or unsure of their purpose. But when you begin to align yourself with the idea that God placed you in a specific time for a specific reason, your life begins to unfold with new clarity. You start to trust the process even when it's painful. You start to embrace your natural tendencies not as flaws, but as sacred traits meant to fulfill divine tasks. One man born in April always felt restless. He longed for movement, for action. It wasn't until he prayed about his birth month that he realized God wired him for leadership and bold beginnings. What he thought was impatience was actually divine energy meant to initiate change. That realization transformed his self-perception and his purpose. Your birth month is a gift, a divine fingerprint stamped onto the timeline of your life. God's plan is not generic. It's personal, detailed, and filled with love. Every sunrise in your birth month, every historical event that surrounded it, every season of nature during that time was connected to the design of your spirit. So trust God's timing. Lean into His wisdom. Ask Him to show you what your birth month reveals about your calling, and be ready to listen with an open heart. Because the more you understand the intention behind your beginning, the more powerfully you can walk into your destiny. Your birth month doesn't lie. It speaks of purpose, of precision, and of a God who never makes mistakes. There is profound prophetic significance in your birth date, more than you may have ever realized. It is not just a day marked by candles and celebrations, it is a sacred appointment on God's eternal calendar. The moment you were born was a divine decision, not an accident of time or circumstance. Heaven marked your entrance into the world with purpose, and your birth date carries clues about your destiny, your spiritual design, and your mission on earth. From a faith-driven perspective, your birth date holds symbolic meaning. Throughout Scripture, we see how dates and times align with divine movements. God operates in seasons, in numbers, and in signs. The Israelites followed appointed feasts and Sabbaths not simply as traditions but as revelations of divine timing. Jesus himself was born at the fullness of time, his arrival synchronized with prophecy, history, and heavenly design. So it is with you. God, the creator of all, does not make arbitrary decisions. Your birth date was chosen with precision. It carries prophetic insight into your calling, your struggles, your personality, and the kind of healing and transformation you will both receive and offer to others. Some are born in the spring, destined to awaken and inspire. Others are born in the heart of winter, called to be a quiet strength in times of darkness. Even the day of the month you were born on can reflect spiritual meanings tied to biblical numbers. Whether it be the grace of the number 5, the completeness of 7, or the new beginnings of 1, your soul chose to arrive at that exact moment, and God approved it. Heaven waited for your entrance. This isn't to make you feel proud or self-important. It's to awaken you to the truth that you matter in the story God is writing. Your life is a living prophecy. Every year your birth date returns. It is not merely a celebration. It is a holy remembrance of your divine assignment. It is a reminder from God saying, I sent you here on this day for a reason. Step into it. Understanding the prophetic significance of your birth date also brings comfort in pain. Perhaps you've wrestled with feelings of being out of place or unsure of your identity. But when you start to see your birth date as an anchor in God's timeline, your self-perception begins to shift. You realize you were created on purpose for a purpose, and the moment you were born carries the echoes of God's voice saying, let there be life. And many who are gifted in healing, in leadership, in discernment, or in spiritual insight often have birth dates that align with turning points. Either personally or historically, you may find, when you look deeper, that your birth date lines up with great shifts in your family, in your community, or even in the broader world. This isn't coincidence. It's confirmation. Let me tell you a story. A woman, born on the 12th day of the 12th month, always felt drawn to helping others heal. When she began exploring the biblical significance of the number 12, government order, divine structure, she wept. She realized her call was to help people restore order to their lives, emotionally and spiritually. Her birth date wasn't random. It was a mirror of her mission. So, ask God to show you what He has hidden within your birth date. Seek Him not only for your future but for a revelation of how your beginning holds power. Meditate on Scripture. Pray over the numbers, the season, the patterns. Let the Holy Spirit speak to you through what you once thought was ordinary. You'll find that your birth date is a prophecy in disguise, a sacred timestamp declaring, you were born for such a time as this. You may have poured your heart into someone who couldn't see your worth. You may have fought to fix what was never yours to heal. You may have tried so hard to make people understand you, only to be left exhausted and unseen. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care for yourself enough to stop bleeding for people who are not willing to stop cutting. This path of letting go is not easy. It will test your strength. You'll be tempted to go back. You'll doubt whether walking away was the right choice. But healing never happens in chaos. It happens in clarity. When you release the toxic, the manipulative, the false, you create space for what's real. Peace, purpose, and divine connection. The moment you say, I don't give a damn anymore, is the moment you take your power back. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. You were not created to be everyone's solution, nor are you meant to carry every burden. God did not design you to live chained to anxiety, fear, or emotional manipulation. He calls you to higher ground, where your worth is not measured by approval, and your value is not tied to how much you can endure. Healing through detachment is a sacred act of trust. It is the bold declaration that your peace matters more than pleasing people. It is the quiet revolution that says, I will not sacrifice my soul just to belong. This kind of healing allows you to feel the pain, but not be defined by it. It allows you to walk away without hatred, to release without resentment, to love without losing yourself. Real life stories are filled with this kind of liberation. The woman who finally leaves an abusive relationship, not because she stopped loving, but because she started valuing herself. The man who stops trying to prove his worth to a father who never acknowledged him, choosing instead to become the father he never had. The young soul who chooses solitude over shallow friendships, learning that being alone with truth is better than being surrounded by lies. Detachment is a holy proning. God removes what cannot stay so that what is meant for you has room to grow. And in that space, in that sacred silence, healing flows like a river. You begin to feel whole again, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped trying to perfect what was never yours to fix. So here is your call to actioning. Let detach, not in bitterness, but in boldness. Speak the word, Lord, and let the healing begin. Trust that divine love will fill the gaps where human love failed. And know that your worth is not up for debate, and your peace is not a luxury. It's a birthright. Detach with grace, heal with faith, and walk forward with power. A resilient mindset shift begins when you finally stop giving your energy to things that drain your soul. Don't give a shit anymore. Isn't about being reckless or careless. It's about reaching a sacred point in your life where you choose peace over performance, a growth over gossip, and purpose over people-pleasing. It's about building a mental fortress around your spirit so that negativity, noise, and unnecessary drama no longer control your day or define your worth. Resilience doesn't just happen overnight. It's forged through disappointment, betrayal, failure, and heartbreak. You fall, you bleed, you cry, and then you rise not with bitterness but with boundaries. The resilient mind knows what to care about and what to release. It knows the power of detachment, not as a means of escape, but as an act of divine clarity. When your focus shifts from proving yourself to preserving your peace, you start living in alignment with your higher calling. Think about it, how much of your energy is spent worrying about what others think, about whether you're liked, accepted, or validated. A resilient mindset doesn't seek approval. It operates from inner authority. It understands that not everyone will applaud your healing. Not everyone will support your boundaries, and not everyone will walk with you to the next chapter. And that's okay. You were not created to shrink so others feel comfortable. You were created to stand tall, even when you stand alone. Real growth begins when you stop trying to carry what isn't yours. Maybe it's someone else's opinion. Maybe it's guilt from your past. Maybe it's fear about your future. A resilient mindset shift tells you you don't have to carry all that. What you do have to carry is your truth, your faith, your responsibility to keep moving forward. Even with trembling hands and a tired heart, you learn to show up for yourself like no one else can. There are stories all around you of people who got tired of playing small, who stopped explaining themselves, who chose joy over justification. The man who stopped chasing status and found peace in simplicity. The woman who walked away from a toxic job, stepped into the unknown, and built a life rooted in purpose. The teenager who chose to live out their authentic identity despite fear of rejection. These stories have one thing in common: a mindset shift that said, I refuse to live a life that isn't mine. And what empowers this shift more than anything is faith. Faith that what's meant for you won't pass you by. Faith that your healing is not just personal, it's divine. Faith that when you stop giving power to petty things, real power emerges from within. This is where you speak the word, Lord, and trust that He is guiding you even when the world misunderstands you. You don't need the world's permission to be free. God already gave it. So here's your call. Let go of what doesn't serve you. Stop giving your precious mind to things that don't grow you. Reclaim your mental space. Choose resilience. Speak life. Walk in faith. And know that there is nothing weak about setting boundaries. There is nothing selfish about choosing healing. And there is nothing wrong with not giving a damn about what no longer aligns with your divine path. You were born to rise, and you will. Not because you forced the world to love you, but because you loved yourself enough to stop shrinking for it. That's the resilient mindset shift. That's the power of not giving a shit anymore.